Right now, somewhere in your family's past, probably sitting in a dusty photograph your grandmother kept, there's someone who got paid actual money to shoot dried peas at strangers' windows before sunrise. Someone else in your family tree guarded public toilets like they were Fort Knox, charging a penny for the privilege of entry. And I'd bet real money that at least one of your ancestors got professionally kissed by a man covered head to toe in chimney soot. These weren't side hustles or weekend gigs. These were legitimate careers that fed families, built communities, and shaped the Britain your grandparents grew up in. Here's what these jobs actually looked like from the inside. So yeah, if these stories help you drift off, hit subscribe. I'm always curious about who's listening and from where. Drop your city and what time it is in the comments. I was reading through them last week and someone from Auckland said it was already tomorrow there. Still can't quite wrap my head around that one. All right, we're heading back to industrial Britain tonight. But before we go anywhere, get yourself comfortable first. I mean, actually comfortable. Pillows sorted. Blanket situation handled. Good. Because where we're going, you're definitely going to want to be settled in. Your eyes open to darkness. Complete darkness. The kind of black that presses against your face like a wool blanket soaked in coal smoke. For a moment you don't know where you are. Then the cold hits you. It's seeping through the thin walls of your terraced house in Manchester, creeping under the door, settling into your bones like it's got nowhere else to be. And then you hear it. Tap, tap, tap. Something's hitting your window. 3 sharp sounds cutting through the silence of 2:30 in the morning. You know what this is. You've been hearing it every morning for years. It's Mary Waters with her bamboo pole, and if you don't get your face to that window in the next few seconds, she'll keep tapping until you do. You drag yourself out of bed. The floorboards are ice against your bare feet. You shuffle to the window and press your palm against the glass, letting her see the movement through the thin curtains. That's the signal. That's all she needs. By the time you've taken your hand away, she's already moving on to the next house, her footsteps fading into the darkness. Mary's been doing this for 30 years now. 30 years of waking at 2 in the morning. 30 years of walking these same cobblestone streets in the pitch black, in the pouring rain, in the bone-cracking cold that settles into northern England like it's got a personal vendetta. She's raised her son on this work, paid for his education, supported her husband when his back gave out and he couldn't work anymore, all by tapping on windows in the dark. She's a knocker-upper. That's actually what they called themselves. I know how that sounds to American ears, but in Britain, knocking someone up just meant waking them. And for about 100 years, from the depths of the Industrial Revolution right through to the 1950s, knocker-uppers were absolutely essential to keeping the entire country running. You pull on your work clothes in the dark. There's no point lighting a candle. You've done this so many times, your hands know where everything is. Trousers first, still damp from yesterday because nothing ever fully dries in this weather. Then the shirt, rough against your skin. The boots that pinch your feet but you can't afford new ones. By 4:30 you need to be at the cotton mill or they dock your wages. By 4:31 you might as well not show up at all. This is why you pay Mary Waters her 3 pence a week. Not because you're lazy, because you're terrified. Missing a shift doesn't mean a slap on the wrist. It means money taken from your pay. Multiple late arrivals and you're out. No job, no income, no way to feed your family. In this era, before any meaningful welfare state, being fired means potential starvation. Real starvation. The kind where children die. So, yeah, 3 pence a week to ensure someone wakes you up. Worth every penny. Outside your window, Mary is still making her rounds. You can hear the faint tap, tap, tap from a few houses down as she works her way through the street. She's got 80 clients on her route, 80 different wake-up times, 80 different windows to tap in a specific order across maybe 2 square miles of tightly packed industrial housing. She keeps every single schedule in her head. No notebook, no written list that anyone knows about. Just decades of practice burned into her memory like grooves in a record. Some knocker-uppers don't use poles like Mary does. Some carry soft hammers that they throw at windows with practiced accuracy. Others have rattles or small drums they beat while standing in the street. And then there are the ones who use pea shooters. I'm not making this up. We have photographic evidence. There's a famous picture from 1931 showing a woman named Mary Smith in East London. She's got this long rubber tube raised to her lips, and she's firing dried peas at a bedroom window. That was her method. That was how she made her living. Shooting peas at strangers' windows in the dark before dawn. You step outside now, into that pre-dawn chill, and you're not alone. All down the street doors are opening. Other workers emerging from their houses, their breath making little clouds in the cold air. Nobody's talking much. It's too early for conversation, but there's a kind of solidarity in it. You're all in this together. You've all been knocked up by Mary or someone like her. You're all making your way to the same mills and factories, trying to keep your jobs, trying to keep your families fed. The trust in this system is wild when you think about it. No contracts, no formal arrangements beyond that weekly payment. Just an understanding between working people that everyone has their part to play and everyone will do their job. Mary trusts you to pay her. You trust her to wake you. It's simple. It works. In the mining communities of County Durham, the system got even more organised. You'd have seen this if you lived there instead of here. The coal mines ran around the clock, different shifts starting at different times, and missing a shift underground wasn't just about lost wages. It could mean the difference between a mine running safely and a mine where something goes wrong because the crew is short-handed. So the collieries themselves employed knocker-uppers, official knocker-uppers, on the company payroll. And here's the brilliant part. The miners' houses had slate boards built right into their exterior walls, little chalkboards essentially mounted next to the front door. Each evening you'd step outside into the cool air, take a piece of chalk and write your shift time for the next morning on that slate. The colliery knocker-upper would walk his route, check each slate and knock up the houses accordingly. They called these knocky-up boards, or sometimes wake-up slates. The language was different then, more colourful somehow, more practical. And who woke up the knocker-uppers? That was the eternal question. There's a tongue twister that survived from this era. We had a knocker-up, and our knocker-up had a knocker-up. And our knocker-up's knocker-up didn't knock our knocker-up. So our knocker-up didn't knock us up. 'Cause he's not up. Usually it was night watchmen finishing their shifts, or people who just naturally couldn't sleep past 2 a.m. and figured they might as well get paid for their insomnia. Police constables sometimes moonlighted as knocker-uppers too. They'd finish their night patrol and, instead of heading home, they'd do a few rounds of window tapping for extra money. In London, there was a man named Charles Nelson who worked as a knocker-upper for 25 years in the East End. 25 years of pre-dawn patrols through some of the roughest neighbourhoods in the city. He woke up doctors and market traders and dock workers and anyone else who needed to be somewhere before the sun came up. His picture survives in the archives. Flat cap, weather-beaten face, eyes that have seen too many dark mornings to count. But every profession has its end, and for the knocker-uppers, it came quietly, one cheap alarm clock at a time. By the 1920s and 30s, affordable alarm clocks started appearing in British shops. They weren't perfect, they weren't always reliable, but they were there. And slowly, street by street, city by city, people stopped needing someone to tap on their windows. Why pay Mary Waters 3p a week when you could buy a clock that would last for years? Some knocker-uppers hung on longer than you'd expect. In smaller industrial towns, the profession survived into the 1970s. There's a story about an 84-year-old man who finally retired in 1960 from his knocking-up duties in a small town near Buckingham. When a reporter asked him what he planned to do with his retirement, he thought about it for a moment and said he might lie in bed until 6 in the morning for once. Think about that. A lifetime of waking before dawn, of walking dark streets, of tapping on windows. And his retirement fantasy was just sleeping until a perfectly normal hour. Right now, you're lying in your comfortable bed. Maybe you've got a phone beside you that'll buzz with 17 different alarms if you set them. Maybe you trust your body to wake up on its own. You'll never need a Mary Waters to tap on your window. You'll never know that specific mix of gratitude and annoyance when dried peas hit your bedroom glass at 2:30 in the morning. But she was real. They all were. Thousands of them, spread across Britain, keeping the country running one tapped window at a time. And as the grey light of dawn starts bleeding through the smoke over the industrial cities, as Mary Waters makes her way home and the knocker-uppers slip back to their beds, another sound is beginning. A different kind of symphony that will become one of the most nostalgic sounds in British memory. The gentle whine of an electric motor, the musical clink of glass bottles shifting in their crates, and somewhere in the distance, a man whistling. A man who's been doing this same route so long, he knows exactly which houses want milk today and which ones left notes asking for extra cream. The milkman is coming, and you're about to meet him. But before he arrives, let me take you somewhere else for a moment. Let me show you what it feels like to be on the other side of that bamboo pole. You're Mary Waters now. It's 2:15 in the morning and you've been awake for an hour already. Your husband is still asleep in the bed you've just left, his breathing heavy and laboured from the cough that never quite goes away. Your son is grown now, educated, working a respectable job in an office somewhere. You paid for that education. Every 3p you collected, every dark morning you walked, every window you tapped. It all went toward making sure he wouldn't have to do what you do. You pull on your coat. It's thin, patched in several places, but it's the warmest thing you own. Your boots are worn smooth on the soles, which actually helps on the cobblestones. Less chance of slipping. You've fallen before, in the ice, in the rain. You've sprained your ankle and still finished your rounds because 80 people were counting on you. 80 families needed to get to work on time. The bamboo pole leans against the wall by the door. 12 feet of flexible wood with a wire arrangement at the end. You've replaced the wire 3 times this year. The cold makes it brittle. You grab it now, feeling the familiar weight of it, the way it balances in your hand after 30 years of practice. Outside, the street is empty. The gas lamps have burned down to almost nothing. You can barely see the houses across the road. But you don't need to see them. You know them. You know every loose cobblestone, every gate that squeaks, every dog that barks if you walk too close to its territory. First stop, number 14, the Davies family. You raise your pole and tap the glass 3 times. Clean, sharp sounds that won't wake the neighbours but will definitely wake anyone behind that window. You wait. Count to 5 in your head. There. Movement behind the curtain. A hand pressed to the glass. You move on. Number 18, the Fletchers. Mrs. Fletcher takes longer to wake than her husband, so you give it an extra tap. 4 instead of 3. She's paying the same as everyone else, but you've learned over the years that some people need a little more encouragement. Number 22, the Harrison boys. 2 brothers, both working the early shift at the foundry. They share a room, so one knock wakes both of them. Efficient. You work your way down the street, then onto the next one, then the one after that. Your feet know the route so well that your mind can wander. You think about the money you'll collect this week, about whether your husband's cough is getting worse, about whether you should buy new boots or try to make these last another winter. The sky is starting to lighten when you finish. Not proper daylight yet, just that grey suggestion of it on the eastern horizon. You've been walking for 3 hours. Your arms ache from lifting the pole. Your feet are numb from the cold. But 80 people are awake now. 80 households are stirring. The factories will run on time today because of you. You head home. Your husband is still asleep. You take off your boots and crawl back into bed beside him, and you're unconscious within minutes. You'll wake around noon, eat something, rest, and then do it all again tomorrow. This was the life of a knocker-upper. This was the rhythm of it. Thousands of people across Britain moving through the darkness while everyone else slept, keeping the wheels of industry turning one tapped window at a time. And now, as you settle back into your own comfortable present, that other sound is growing louder. The sound that replaced the knocker-upper's tap. The sound that meant a new day was starting and the world was waking up properly. The milkman is here. His electric float is humming down your street, and if you listen closely you can hear the clink of those glass bottles, that musical sound that defined British mornings for nearly a century. Let me tell you about him. You're standing at your front door now. It's 6:30 in the morning and the world has finally started to wake up properly. The knocker-upper's tap feels like hours ago, though it's only been 4. You've already done half a shift at the mill. Your hands are sore. Your back aches. But there's something happening out on the street that makes you pause before heading back inside. That sound. The low electric hum of a milk float coming down the road. The clink and rattle of glass bottles shifting in their wire crates. And there he is, Steve. Same man who's been delivering to this street for longer than you've been alive. His float is a strange-looking thing if you're not used to it. 3 wheels, open sides, no doors to speak of, just a platform he can hop on and off of without slowing down. The whole vehicle runs on batteries, which means it barely makes a noise. Perfect for 5 in the morning when everyone's still asleep. Not so useful now, but Steve keeps the same pace regardless. Old habits. He spots you watching and gives a little wave. Doesn't stop though. Can't stop. He's got 200 houses to hit before noon, and he's already running behind because Mrs. Patterson on Elm Street wanted to talk about her hip surgery for 15 minutes. You watch him work. It's like a dance, honestly. He pulls up to a house, hops off the float before it's fully stopped, grabs 2 bottles of milk in one hand, walks to the doorstep, picks up the empties, leaves the fresh ones, walks back, drops the empties in a crate, hops back on, and he's moving to the next house before you finish blinking. Years of practice, decades of it. Steve's been doing this route for 40 years. 40 years of the same streets. 40 years of watching kids grow up, leave home, have kids of their own. He's delivered milk to 3 generations of some families. Great-grandmothers who remember him as the young lad who took over from old Charlie in '63. Kids who think he's just always been there, like the postbox or the corner shop. If you'd been born a bit earlier, if you'd grown up in the 50s or 60s, This would have been your morning soundtrack. Not an alarm clock, not a phone buzzing, just the gentle clink of glass bottles being set down on doorsteps all along your street. People used to say they could tell the time by the milkman. 7:15, Steve's at the corner. 7:20, he's passing the greengrocer's. 7:25, he's at your door. But here's what most people don't understand about being a milkman. It wasn't just about the milk. Watch this. You're Steve now. It's 1972, and you've been doing this job for almost a decade. You know every house on your route, not just which ones want full cream and which ones want skimmed. You know which houses have new babies, which ones have teenagers who stay out too late, which elderly folks live alone and might need checking on. There's a system, see? The milk bottles you leave on the doorstep, they're like a signal. If you come back the next morning and yesterday's bottles are still sitting there, untouched, something's wrong. Maybe they're on holiday. Maybe they forgot to bring them in. Or maybe Mrs. Chen, who's 84 and lives alone since her husband died, has fallen and can't get to the door. You've found 3 people like that over the years. 3 times you've noticed the bottles piling up, knocked on the door, got no answer, and called someone to check. 2 of them were fine, gone to visit relatives and forgot to cancel the milk. But one of them, old Bernard on Ashworth Street, he'd had a stroke in his kitchen. Doctors said if you hadn't noticed, if you hadn't raised the alarm, he'd have died there on the linoleum. That's the job. That's what people don't see. You're not just delivering dairy products, you're the person who notices, the one who pays attention when nobody else does. The money's not great if you're honest. Never has been. You start work at 4 in the morning, sometimes earlier in summer when the milk needs to get to doorsteps before the sun warms it up. You finish around noon if everything goes smoothly, later if it doesn't. Customers leave their payment in the empty bottles, coins tucked underneath them, or little envelopes with the exact change. Sometimes they leave notes too. 2 extra pints, please, Steve, my sister's visitin'. Just one today, Jim's in hospital. Could you check on number 42? Haven't seen Mrs. Okonkwo in days. You read those notes and you know what's happening in people's lives. You know who's celebrating and who's struggling. You know which marriages are falling apart because suddenly there's only 1 name on the milk order instead of 2. You know which families just had good news because they've added cream and eggs to their usual order, probably planning a special breakfast. In 1964, they started giving out awards for this job. Personality Milkman of the Year, they called it. A man named George Jones from Llandudno in Wales won it that year. Got his picture in all the papers. Travelled down to London to collect his prize at the National Dairy Centre on Charing Cross Road, like he was receiving a medal from the Queen herself. Think about that for a second. A national competition to find the friendliest milkman in the country. That's how much these people mattered. That's how central they were to daily life. The floats themselves were something special too. Britain had more electric vehicles on its roads by 1967 than any other country in the world, and most of them were milk floats. Not because anyone was worried about the environment back then, simply because milkmen needed to be quiet. You can't go rumbling down a residential street at 5 in the morning in a diesel truck without waking everyone up and losing half your customers. So they built these silent little vehicles, batteries charged overnight at the depot, top speed of maybe 15 miles an hour, though you'd rarely need to go that fast. The whole thing designed around hopping on and off, grabbing bottles, moving quickly from house to house without ever fully stopping. Some kids used to help the milkman on his rounds. You remember this if you grew up in that era. Saturday mornings or summer holidays, you'd wake up early and ask if you could ride along. Most milkmen were happy to have the company. You'd sit on the back of the float, legs dangling, and when he pulled up to a house, you'd jump off, grab the bottles, run them to the doorstep, run back. No wages. Maybe a free bottle of chocolate milk if you did a good job. But the thrill of it was enough. There was a milkman called Dirty Dick who let kids ride with him on Sundays. Nobody remembers why they called him that. He wasn't particularly dirty, just one of those nicknames that sticks for reasons lost to time. Kids would fight for the chance to help Dirty Dick on his rounds. Best morning of the week. Your float is getting older now. It's 1978 and the casing is rusted in places. The batteries don't hold a charge like they used to. The dairy keeps talking about getting new vehicles, but the money's tight. People are buying their milk from supermarkets these days. Big cold cases full of plastic bottles, cheaper than doorstep delivery, easier to grab while you're doing your weekly shop. You've lost 40 customers this year alone. 40 houses that used to have bottles waiting for you every morning. Now they just have empty doorsteps. The housewives who used to wave at you from their kitchen windows, they're driving to Tesco instead. The notes asking for extra cream, there are fewer of them every month. It's not personal. You know that. It's just how things change. Refrigerators got better, got bigger. People don't need fresh milk delivered every single day anymore. They can buy a week's worth and keep it cold. But still, 40 years you've been doing this. 40 years of knowing these streets better than anyone. You've watched the children grow up. You've watched the old folks pass away. You were there through power cuts and snowstorms and that heat wave in '76 when you had to start your rounds at 3 a.m. just to get the milk delivered before it spoiled. Mrs. Patterson on Elm Street, the one who talks your ear off about her hip, she's been your customer since 1965. Her daughter was born that year. You delivered milk to the house the morning she came home from the hospital. Now that daughter has children of her own, and they've moved to Birmingham, and Mrs. Patterson is alone in that house with nobody to talk to except you. So, yeah, you stand there and listen to her talk about her hip for 15 minutes. 'Cause that's part of the job too. That's always been part of the job. By the 90s, most of the milkmen were gone. The floats disappeared from British streets. The clink of bottles at dawn became a memory instead of a daily occurrence. A few holdouts kept going, especially in smaller towns where people still like the personal touch. But the golden age was over. The supermarkets had won. There's something sad about that, isn't there? Not just the loss of a job, but the loss of that daily connection. Someone who knew your name. Someone who noticed if you didn't answer your door. Someone who could tell you were going through a rough patch just by reading the notes you left in empty bottles. You're back in your own bed now. Your own time. The milkman doesn't come to your street anymore. Probably hasn't for decades. You buy your milk in plastic jugs from a grocery store, and you don't know the name of a single person who works there. But somewhere in Britain, a few milk floats are still humming along. A few milkmen are still making their rounds, still reading the notes, still noticing the bottles that haven't been collected, still keeping an eye on the Mrs. Pattersons of the world, making sure someone's checking in. And as the morning goes on, as Steve finishes his route and heads back to the depot, another sound is starting to echo through the streets. A different kind of call, a different kind of worker moving through the neighbourhood. A man with a horse and cart shouting 2 words that every child in Britain used to know. Ragbone. You can hear him coming now. And what he's offering, the strange barter system he's running out of the back of that cart, it's something you need to see to believe. But hold on. Before we leave Steve and his milk float behind, there's more you need to understand about this job. About what it cost and what it gave. Come back to the depot with me, 4 a.m. It's still pitch black outside and the air is so cold it burns your lungs when you breathe in too fast. You're Steve again, 23 years old, new to this job, still learning the routes. The depot smells like sour milk and diesel exhaust. Dozens of floats are lined up, plugged into charging stations that hum and click in the darkness. The other milkmen are already here, loading their vehicles, checking their orders. Nobody talks much at this hour. Too early for conversation. Just the sound of bottles clinking and the squeak of trolley wheels on concrete. Your round sheet is pinned to a clipboard. 218 houses today. You've got it memorized now, but in the beginning you had to check it constantly. Left on Ashworth, right on Maple, straight through to Canterbury Road. Mrs. Chen gets 2 pints of full cream. The Johnsons want skimmed. The Petersons switched to gold top last week and you keep forgetting. Loading the float is an art form. You learn this quickly. Heavy crates on the bottom or the whole thing tips when you take corners. Glass bottles facing inward so they don't crack against the sides. Eggs in a separate carrier because one good bump and you're delivering omelettes instead of breakfast. The batteries are charged. The milk is loaded. You climb onto the float and it dips under your weight. These things are built light, barely more than a platform with wheels and a motor. Your knees will ache from standing by the time you're 30. Your back will never quite be right again. But that's the price of the job and you pay it without thinking because what else are you going to do? The streets are empty at this hour. Just you and the float and the darkness. Street lamps throw pools of yellow light onto wet pavement. A cat watches you from someone's garden wall. The whole city is sleeping and you're the only one moving through it. A ghost with a payload of dairy. First delivery. You pull up, hop off, grab the bottles. The doorstep is slick with dew. You set the fresh milk down, pick up the empties, notice the note tucked underneath. Morning, Steve. Could we try Jersey milk this week? Peter thinks it might help his stomach. You don't know Peter. Never met him. But you know his stomach troubles now. You know his wife thinks Jersey milk might be the answer. You'll remember to bring Jersey milk tomorrow. You'll remember to ask next week if it helped. That's the job. Hundreds of small intimacies. Hundreds of lives you brush against without ever quite entering. You know their breakfast habits and their health problems and their family dramas. But you couldn't tell someone what colour their living room walls are. It's a strange kind of closeness. Surface level, but somehow deep at the same time. The sun starts coming up around 6:30 in summer, later in winter. The streets change character. Lights flick on in bedroom windows. Front doors open as men head off to work and children head off to school. People wave at you, say good morning. You've become part of the landscape, as permanent as the postbox, as reliable as the sunrise. There's a warmth in that, a sense of belonging. You're not just doing a job, you're woven into the fabric of these neighbourhoods. When you take a holiday, people notice. They ask where you've been when you come back. They've missed the familiar sound of your float coming down the street, and when you retire decades from now, they'll put a card through your door at the depot. Hundreds of signatures from customers you've served for 30, 40 years. Thank you, Steve. We'll miss you, Steve. Good luck, Steve. Who's going to check on us now, Steve? The job pays for a small house and a decent life. Not luxury, never luxury, but enough. Enough to raise kids. Enough to take the family to Blackpool for a week each summer. Enough to feel like you're providing, like you're doing something that matters. Because it does matter. You know it matters. Every morning when you set those bottles down on doorsteps, you're giving people something they need. Something basic and essential. Fresh milk for their tea, cream for their porridge, eggs for their breakfast. And you're giving them something else too, something harder to name. The comfort of routine, the assurance that someone out there is thinking about them, keeping track, showing up every single day without fail. That's worth something. That's worth 40 years of early mornings and aching knees and rusted floats. But nothing lasts forever. The supermarkets came. The refrigerators got bigger. The world changed and the milkman changed with it. From essential service to nostalgic memory. From daily visitor to once-a-week novelty to nothing at all. You set down the last delivery of the morning. It's 11:30. Your float is empty except for the empties rattling in their crates. Tomorrow you'll do it all again. And the day after that. And the day after that. Until one day you don't. Let yourself drift back now. Back to your own bed. Your own time. The milkman is gone. The clink of bottles at dawn is a sound from another era. But another sound is rising. That call echoing through the streets of memory. Rag bone, any old iron. The rag and bone man is coming. And you're about to find out why children used to run screaming with excitement at the sound of his cart. You're 8 years old and you've just heard the most exciting sound in the world. Ragbone, any old iron. The voice is distant still, maybe 2 streets over, but it's getting closer. You know this voice. You've been waiting for it all week. You drop whatever you're doing and sprint to the kitchen where your mum is peeling potatoes. Mum! Mum! The rag and bone man's coming. She doesn't even look up, just nods toward the cupboard under the stairs. There's some old curtains in there, and your dad's broken wireless. See what he'll give you for them. You're already pulling open the cupboard door, dragging out anything that looks old or broken or unwanted. The curtains are dusty and smell like your grandmother's house. The wireless has a cracked face and hasn't worked since before you were born. Perfect. This is exactly the kind of stuff he wants. You run outside, arms full, and you're not alone. All down the street, other children are emerging from their houses. Some carry bundles of old clothes. Others have bits of scrap metal, broken toys, chipped crockery. One kid from the end terrace is dragging an entire rusty bicycle frame, scraping it along the pavement like he's discovered buried treasure. And then he appears, the rag and bone man, sitting up on his cart like a king on a throne, reins loose in his weathered hands, a horse plodding steadily ahead of him. The cart is piled high with stuff. There's no other word for it. Mountains of stuff. Old bed frames and tangled wires and lumpy fabric bundles and things you can't even identify from this distance. But you're not looking at the cart. You're looking at what's hanging from the sides of it. Goldfish. Dozens of them. Little plastic bags filled with water, each one containing a single orange fish, swaying gently as the cart moves. And balloons. Red ones, blue ones, yellow ones, bobbing in the breeze like the whole cart is about to lift off and float away. This is what you came for. This is what every kid on the street came for. The man pulls the horse to a stop. He's old, maybe 60, with a flat cap pulled low over his eyes and hands that look like they've spent a lifetime handling rough things. His name is Alf. Though you won't learn that for years. To you he's just the rag and bone man, the magic man who turns your family's rubbish into goldfish. Right then, he says, looking down at the crowd of children, what have we got today? You push forward, holding up your dusty curtains and broken wireless. He takes them from you, examines them with an expert eye, runs the fabric between his fingers, turns the wireless over, peers at the back of it. Not bad, not bad. The curtains are decent. Wireless is only good for parts. He reaches to his side and pulls down one of those plastic bags. Inside, a goldfish is swimming in lazy circles. This do ya? You nod so hard your neck hurts. You take the bag carefully, reverently, like he's just handed you a tiny god. The fish looks up at you through the plastic. You're going to call him Captain. Captain will be dead within a week. They always are. Something about the water in those bags, or the stress of the journey, or just the general fragility of fairground goldfish. But right now, in this moment, he's the most precious thing you've ever owned. The rag and bone man works his way through the crowd. Old clothes get pennies, scrap metal gets balloons, particularly good hauls get goldfish. The system makes no logical sense if you think about it. He's essentially running a carnival game out of the back of a horse-drawn cart. But nobody questions it. This is just how it works. This is how it's always worked. His horse stands patient through all of this. She's called Queenie, you'll learn later. An old mare who's been doing this route so long she could probably do it without Alf at all. She knows which streets to turn down, which houses to stop at. When Alf gets too deep in conversation with a customer, she just starts walking to the next spot on her own. Time to see it from Alf's side. Time to understand what this work really means. You're Alf Masterson. It's 1958, and you've been doing this job for almost 20 years. Started when you were barely more than a boy yourself, helping your uncle on his rounds through Camden. Now you've got your own cart, your own horse, your own territory. The work is simple but not easy. You wake before dawn, same as the milkman, and head to the yard where Queenie is waiting. She knows the sound of your footsteps, starts shifting in her stall before you even open the door. You harness her up, check her hooves, make sure she's fed and watered. A rag and bone man is only as good as his horse. Treat her badly and she'll let you down when you need her most. The cart gets loaded with your trade goods. The goldfish come from a man in Islington who breeds them by the hundreds. The balloons you buy wholesale from a supplier near the docks. You've got boxes of cheap toys too, tin whistles and spinning tops and little wooden puzzles, for when someone brings you something really valuable. Then you're off, through the streets of North London as the city wakes up around you. Rag bone, any old iron. You've got a voice like a foghorn, comes from years of practice. You can make yourself heard 3 streets away without straining. The call is important. It's your announcement, your advertisement, your way of letting people know you're coming. Some rag and bone men have different calls. Some sing little songs. Some ring bells. You've always preferred the traditional way. The words your uncle taught you. The same words rag and bone men have been calling for 100 years or more. What are you actually collecting? Everything. Anything. Old clothes get sorted and sold to textile merchants who'll tear them apart for the raw material. Rags, they call it, hence the name. Bones go to glue factories, fertilizer plants, places that can boil them down for whatever useful substances they contain. Scrap metal gets weighed and sold by the pound. Furniture can be repaired and resold. Broken appliances contain copper wire and other valuable bits if you know where to look. You're a recycler, basically, before anyone used that word, before anyone thought of it as something noble or environmentally important. You're just a man with a cart who makes a living turning other people's unwanted things into money. But here's the thing about this job. The thing that keeps you doing it year after year, even when your back aches and your hands are rough, and Queenie is getting too old to pull the cart much longer. You know everyone, every street you work. You know the families. You know the Hendersons on Oak Street whose father lost his job last month, and who've been bringing you anything they can spare to make a few pennies. You know Mrs. Oyalaran on the corner, whose husband died in the war and who always saves her best bits of scrap for you because you once helped her carry groceries when her arms gave out. You know the Flanagan kids, 7 of them, who come running every time they hear your call and who've probably earned enough goldfish to stock an aquarium. You're part of their lives. Not a big part, maybe. Just a man who comes around once a week with a cart full of junk and a pocket full of goldfish. But you're there, consistent, reliable. You've watched those Flanagan kids grow from toddlers to teenagers. You remember when the Henderson house had a new baby, and you remember when Mrs. Oyalaran's roses won a prize at the church fete. That's worth something. That's worth getting up before dawn and shouting yourself hoarse and coming home smelling like old clothes and horse sweat. The money's decent too. Better than most people think. A good day, you can clear £2 or £3. That's solid wages for 1958. Enough to keep a roof over your head and food on the table. Enough to save a little for when Queenie finally can't work anymore and you need to buy a new horse. There's a hierarchy among rag and bone men. Territories, kind of. Unspoken agreements about who works which streets. You don't go into another man's area without permission. That's how fights start. That's how carts get overturned and horses get spooked and everyone loses money. Your territory is a patch of streets between Camden and Kentish Town. You inherited it from your uncle when he retired. You'll pass it on to someone else when you're done, probably to young Billy, who's been helping you out on Saturdays and who's got the voice for it. That carrying quality that makes people look up from their breakfast tables and think about what they've got lying around that they don't need anymore. Henry Mayhew wrote about men like you back in 1851. Counted somewhere between 800 and 1,000 rag and bone men working London alone. 800 men with carts and horses and calls and territories, all making a living from the city's cast-offs. A whole economy built on rubbish. By the time you're old, that economy will be dying. The council will start collecting rubbish properly. People will throw things away instead of saving them for the rag and bone man. The scrap merchants will get trucks and scales and won't need middlemen like you anymore. But that's later. That's years away. Right now in 1958, you're sitting on your cart watching a little boy cradle a plastic bag full of goldfish like it's made of gold. His face is lit up. Pure joy. You gave him that. You took his family's old curtains and broken wireless and turned them into a moment he'll remember for the rest of his life. That's not a bad day's work. That's not bad at all. Queenie starts walking without you telling her to. She knows it's time to move on. You give the reins a little shake, more for show than anything else, and let her carry you to the next street. Ragbone, any old iron? The call echoes between the houses. Doors start opening. Children start running. The whole beautiful, absurd economy cranks into motion once again. You're back in your own time now. Your own bed. The rag and bone man hasn't come to your street in decades. Maybe ever, depending on where you live. The goldfish, the balloons, the creaking cart and patient horse. All of it faded away as the 20th century rolled on, and people found new ways to dispose of their unwanted things. But somewhere in your family's memory, if you're British, there's probably a story about them. A grandmother who traded old sheets for a balloon. A grandfather who helped the rag and bone man load his cart for a few pennies. A great-aunt who named her goldfish something ridiculous and cried when it died 3 days later. These memories are getting rarer now. The people who lived them are getting older, dying off, taking their stories with them. In another generation or two, the rag and bone man will be as distant as the lamplighter or the town crier, just a figure from history books, just a strange job that sounds made up. But he was real. Alf was real. Queenie was real. Those goldfish, Fragile as they were, swimming in their little bags while children carried them home like treasure, they were real too. And now, as the afternoon settles into evening, as the rag and bone man finishes his rounds and heads back to the yard to unload his cart and brush down his horse, another figure is making her way through the offices and factories of Britain. You can hear the rattle of her trolley, the clink of cups on saucers, and if you're lucky, if you work in the right kind of place, you're about to experience one of the most beloved rituals in British working life. The tea lady is coming, and she knows exactly how you take yours. But hold on, there's more to the rag and bone man's world that you haven't seen yet. Come a bit deeper into this life. You're back in Alf's boots. It's a Saturday in late autumn 1962, and young Billy is riding on the cart with you. He's 15, all elbows and enthusiasm, and he's been helping you out for the past year, learning the trade, learning the calls, learning which streets are generous and which ones aren't worth the time. Watch how I do this, you tell him as Queenie stops outside a row of terraced houses in Holloway. Don't just grab whatever they give you. Look at it first. Feel the weight of it. Fabric's got to be clean, or mostly clean. Metal's got to be solid, not all rusted through. You take rubbish thinking it's treasure. You lose money when you get to the yard. Billy nods, serious as a judge. He's got the right attitude. Not everyone does. Some boys think this is easy work, just driving around collecting junk. They don't last. The boys who last are the ones who understand that this is a craft, that there's skill in knowing what's valuable and what's worthless, that the difference between a good rag and bone man and a poor one is the quality of his eye. A woman comes out of number 47 with a bundle of old coats. You can tell from 20 feet away that they're good ones. Wool, mostly. Heavy. The kind of thing the textile merchants love because there's real material there, not just cotton and polyester that falls apart when you look at it. "What'll you give me for these then?" she asks. You climb down from the cart, take the bundle, spread out the coats one by one, check the linings, feel the seams, look for moth damage, stains, tears that would reduce the value. "6pence for the lot, you say," she frowns. "They cost a lot more than 6pence when they were new." "I'm sure they did, love, but they're not new now, are they?" You keep your voice friendly. This is part of the dance. Everyone haggles a little. Everyone wants to feel like they got a fair deal. "Tell you what, 6pence and a balloon for your little one." She's got a daughter hiding behind her skirt, 3 or 4 years old. The girl's eyes go wide at the mention of a balloon. "Go on then," the woman says. 6pence and a balloon." You hand over the coins, pull down a red balloon, tie it to the little girl's wrist. She stares at it like you've just handed her the moon. The mother goes back inside. You load the coats onto the cart. "See that?" you say to Billy. "She was happy. I was happy. The girl got a balloon. Everyone wins." "But those coats were worth more than 6pence, Billy says. "Course they were. They're worth at least 2 bob at the yard. Maybe more. But I gave her what she expected, plus something extra for the kid. She'll remember that. She'll save her good stuff for me instead of giving it to one of the other men. That's how you build a territory, son. Not by squeezing every penny. By being fair. By being the one people want to deal with." Billy thinks about this. You can see him filing it away. Good. He'll need it. The afternoon wears on. The cart gets heavier. Queenie moves slower, but she's steady. Never complains. Never balks. 30 years you've been working with horses, and Queenie's the best you've ever had. When she goes, and she will soon because she's getting on now, it'll be like losing a partner. There's a social element to this work that people don't expect. You stop at the pub around 3, let Queenie rest and water her, and you go in for a pint. The publican knows you. The regulars know you. You swap gossip, share news, hear about who's hiring and who's firing and whose daughter just got married. This is how information moves through working-class London, not through newspapers, through men like you, who travel from street to street and carry stories along with the scrap metal. Heard the Gibsons on Caledonian Road are moving, someone tells you. Emigrating to Australia. Might have some good stuff to get rid of. You make a mental note. Tomorrow you'll swing by the Gibsons, see what they're willing to part with. Families moving overseas often have too much to take and not enough time to sell it properly. That's when you get the really good finds. The furniture nobody wants to ship across the world. The silverware that's been in the family for generations but isn't worth the postage. By 5 o'clock the light is fading and the cart is full. Time to head back to the yard. You'll unload everything, sort it into piles. Rags here, metal there, bones in the corner. Then you'll settle up with the buyers who come around in the evenings looking for stock. The textile man will take the clothes, the scrap dealer will take the metal, the bone merchant will take whatever's left. Tomorrow you'll do it all again, and the day after, and the day after that, until you can't any more. There's a photograph of Alf Masterson from 1967, the last year he worked. He's standing next to a cart that's mostly rust and patches, holding Queenie's bridle. She died 3 months after that picture was taken. He never got another horse. Couldn't face it, people said. Couldn't imagine doing the rounds with anyone else. The yard he worked out of is a block of flats now. The streets he called through are still there, but the people are different. The children who traded old clothes for goldfish are grandparents now, or great-grandparents, or gone altogether. What stays is the echo of that call. Rag bone, any old iron, bouncing off terraced houses in the early morning, making kids run to their cupboards looking for treasure, making mothers shake their heads and dig out whatever they'd been meaning to throw away. That sound, that strange, wonderful, completely ridiculous economy of balloons and goldfish and broken things. It was real, it was Britain, and now it's gone. Let yourself drift back now. Your own bed, your own quiet evening. No rag and bone men calling outside your window. No Queenie plodding down your street. Just the memory of a world that used to be, fading gently into sleep. But the working day isn't over yet. Not in the Britain we're remembering. Because somewhere in an office building, in a factory, in a department store, a very important ritual is about to begin. The rattle of a trolley, the clink of cups, the question everyone's been waiting for since the last break ended. Tea, love? The tea lady's making her rounds, and she's got biscuits. You're sitting at a desk. It's 1963 and the clock on the wall says 10:45. You've been typing for 3 hours straight. Your fingers ache. Your eyes are tired from staring at carbon paper and tiny print. The office around you is a sea of identical desks, identical typewriters, identical women in identical blouses, all clacking away at their keyboards like some kind of mechanical orchestra. And then you hear it, the rattle, distant at first, then closer, metal wheels on linoleum, the gentle percussion of cups shifting on saucers, a sound so familiar, so welcome, that half the office looks up at exactly the same moment. Alice is coming. She rounds the corner, pushing her trolley, and the whole mood of the room changes. Shoulders relax, typing slows. People start to smile. It's not just about the tea, though the tea is important. It's about Alice herself, about what she represents. A break, a breath, a moment of human contact in the middle of a long grey day. "Morning, loves," she says, parking the trolley at the end of your row. Who's ready for a cuppa? You're ready. God, you're ready. You've been thinking about this tea for the last 45 minutes, watching the clock, willing it to move faster. Your mouth is dry from too much talking on the telephone. Your brain is fuzzy from too many numbers and not enough fresh air. Alice works her way down the row. She doesn't need to ask anyone how they take it. She knows. 37 people in this office, and she knows every single one of their preferences. Mrs. Henderson takes hers weak with 2 sugars. Mr. Blackwood wants it strong enough to stand a spoon in. No sugar, just a splash of milk. Young Patricia from the filing room likes hers with so much milk it's barely brown anymore. When Alice gets to you, she's already pouring. Knows exactly how much to fill the cup. Knows you like it medium strength. 1 sugar, stirred clockwise for some reason you can't even explain. She hands it to you with a biscuit balanced on the saucer. Digestive. Your favourite. You look tired, love, she says. Not loud enough for anyone else to hear, just between the 2 of you. Long week, you say. She nods. Pats your shoulder once. Moves on to the next desk. That's it. That's the whole conversation. But somehow you feel better. Somehow the afternoon doesn't seem quite so endless anymore. This is what a tea lady did. Not just pouring drinks. Not just pushing a trolley around. She was the beating heart of an office. The person who knew everyone's name and everyone's troubles. The one who noticed when someone was having a bad day and slipped them an extra biscuit without making a fuss about it. Let me put you in Alice's shoes now. Show you what the job looked like from the other side. You're Alice Bond. It's 5 in the morning and you're already at work setting up for the day. The industrial kitchen in the basement of this insurance company smells like yesterday's soup and tomorrow's tea. Your urn is heating up, a massive copper thing that holds enough water for 200 cups. You've been doing this for 11 years now, and you could run this kitchen blindfolded. The trolley gets loaded with precision. Cups on the left, saucers stacked underneath, milk in the blue jug, sugar in the white bowl, teaspoons in the little ceramic holder your daughter made in school, the one with the wonky handle that you've used every day for 6 years. Biscuits go in the tin, arranged so they won't crumble when the trolley moves. First round is at 7 for the early shift workers, men mostly from the post room and the maintenance department. They like their tea hot and strong and they don't much care about saucers. You pour straight into mugs for them, thick ceramic things that can survive being dropped. Second round is at 10 for the typing pool and the secretaries. That's when you need the good china. The women in that department have standards. They notice if a cup is chipped or a saucer is stained. You learned that the hard way your first week on the job. Third round is at 3 for everyone who's still awake and functioning. By then you've made maybe 300 cups of tea. Your arms are tired from lifting the urn. Your feet are sore from pushing the trolley across different floors, in and out of lifts, up and down corridors. But you keep smiling. That's part of the job. That's most of the job, if you're honest. The thing about being a tea lady is that people talk to you. Really talk. Not the polite surface stuff they say to their managers or their colleagues. The real stuff. The problems at home. The worries about money. The husband who drinks too much. The daughter who's got herself in trouble. They tell you because you're safe. You're not part of their world, not really. You're the woman with the trolley who comes and goes and never judges. You know secrets about this company that would make the directors blush. You know who's sleeping with who's been embezzling from the petty cash, who cries in the toilets every Thursday afternoon for reasons nobody else has figured out. You know it all, and you never say a word. That's the code. That's how it works. The tea lady knows everything and tells nothing. There's a woman on the 4th floor, Patricia, who's been coming to work with bruises she thinks nobody notices. You noticed. You always notice. You started giving her extra biscuits a few weeks ago, sitting with her a little longer when you do the rounds, letting her talk if she wants to, staying quiet if she doesn't. It's not much. It's not solving anything, but it's something. That's what this job is. 1,000 small somethings. A cup of tea when someone needs it. A kind word when the day is hard. A moment of warmth in an office that can feel very cold. The war changed everything, people say. Before the war, tea ladies were just servants. After the war, when women had worked in factories and driven ambulances and proved they could do anything, the tea lady became something different. A respected position. A necessary one. The person who kept morale up when the work was boring and the bosses were demanding and the future felt uncertain. By the time you retire, decades from now, the tea ladies will be mostly gone, replaced by vending machines that dispense bitter coffee and tepid soup, replaced by kitchenettes where people make their own drinks and don't talk to anyone while they do it. Something will be lost. That daily moment of human connection, that ritual of cups and saucers and someone who knows your name. But that's later. Right now, in 1963, you're pushing your trolley through the typing pool and everyone is looking up and smiling, and the whole room feels a little bit lighter, because you're there. The typing pool, look at it for a moment. Really look. 30 women, maybe 40, sitting at identical desks in identical rows, each one facing an identical typewriter. The sound is incredible. A constant clatter of keys like rain on a tin roof, like 100 tiny hammers all striking at once. This is the soundtrack of office life in the 50s and 60s. The clickety-clack of the typing pool. These women are fast. 60 words a minute minimum. Some can do 80, 90, 100. Their fingers fly across the keys without looking, without thinking. The letters appear on the page as if by magic. You're one of them now. Margaret. It's 1957, and you've been in the pool for 3 years. Your desk is in the 4th row, between Patricia, who types faster than anyone, and Susan, who makes the fewest errors. You're somewhere in between. Fast enough. Accurate enough. Good at your job without being exceptional. The work comes down from the executives on the floors above. Handwritten drafts, dictation recordings, scribbled notes that you have to decipher. You transform all of it into crisp, clean documents. Letters to clients, reports for meetings, memos that will be filed and forgotten. Mistakes are expensive. There's no delete key on a typewriter, no backspace that actually removes what you've written. If you hit the wrong letter, you've got choices. Correction fluid, which looks messy. Correction tape, which looks slightly less messy. Or starting over completely, which wastes time and paper. The supervisors watch. They actually time you sometimes, standing behind your chair with a stopwatch. Words per minute, errors per page, everything measured, everything counted. The good typists get the important documents. The less good ones get the routine stuff. There's a hierarchy here, even though everyone's doing the same basic job. Your hands ache by the end of the day. Your shoulders are tight from hunching over the machine. Your ears ring from hours of constant noise. But there's something satisfying about it too. That stack of finished documents, that pile of work completed, proof that you were here, that you did something, that the office couldn't function without you. The personal computers came eventually. Word processors first, then proper computers with screens and keyboards and that magical delete key. The typing pools emptied out. The women found other work or retired or were made redundant. The sound of 40 typewriters clattering in unison became a memory. But right now, in 1957, you're part of something. Part of the machinery that keeps British business running. Your fingers on the keys, your words on the page, one document at a time. Let yourself settle into that image for a moment. The rattle of the tea trolley moving between the desks, the steam rising from the urn, the constant percussion of typewriters in the background, the gentle murmur of conversation as people take their breaks and catch up on gossip, and remember that they're human beings, not just workers. Your cup is warm in your hands. The tea is exactly right. Alice has moved on to the next apartment, her trolley rattling away down the corridor, but the feeling she left behind stays with you. That small kindness, that moment of being seen. And now another voice is cutting through the office noise, a voice you know well, a voice that connects you to the world outside these walls. Number, please. The telephone on your desk is ringing, and somewhere, in a vast room full of cables and plugs and switchboards, a woman is about to connect you to whoever's calling. Let me take you there, to that room, to those women, to one of the strangest and most demanding jobs in British history. You're sitting in front of a switchboard. It's 1954, and the board in front of you stretches 8 feet wide and 6 feet tall. A wall of holes and cables and tiny lights that blink and flash like stars. You're wearing a headset. Your hands are moving constantly, plugging cables in, pulling them out, routing calls from one line to another. Number, please. The voice in your ear gives you a number. Whitehall 4729. Your hands are already moving before your brain has finished processing. You know where that number lives on the board. You've connected calls to it 100 times. Your fingers find the right hole, plug in the cable, and somewhere across London 2 people start talking to each other because you made it happen. This is the telephone exchange. This is where calls go to get connected. And the women who work here, the operators, they're the invisible voices that hold the whole system together. There's a training period for this job. 3 months minimum. They teach you the geography of the switchboard. They teach you which numbers go where. They teach you how to speak clear and professional with that particular operator voice that sounds friendly but not too friendly, helpful but not too familiar. They also teach you what not to say. No chatting with callers. No commenting on what you overhear. No reactions, no matter what comes through those lines. You might connect a woman to her dying mother. You might connect a man to his mistress. You might hear arguments and confessions and business deals worth thousands of pounds. None of it is any of your business. You're just the voice that says number, please, and the hands that make the connection. The hours are brutal. Shifts run around the clock because the telephone never sleeps. You might work days 1 week, nights the next. You might start at midnight and finish at 8 in the morning, walking home through empty streets while the rest of the world is just waking up. The pay is decent but not generous. The work is repetitive but demanding. Your arms ache from reaching across the board. Your ears ring from the constant noise of the exchange. But there's something about it. Something that keeps women coming back year after year. You're part of something important. Every call you connect is a piece of human communication. A grandmother calling her grandchildren. A businessman closing a deal. A doctor receiving an emergency summons. Without you. Without your hands and your voice and your knowledge of that massive switchboard, none of those conversations happen. They called you the Hello Girls back in the early days. The girls who said hello when you picked up the phone. The nickname stuck even as you got older. Even as the girls became women in their 30s and 40s and 50s who'd been doing this job for decades. There were rules, of course. So many rules. You had to be unmarried when you started. They expected you to resign when you got engaged, definitely when you got married. The thinking was that married women had too many distractions, that a husband and children would interfere with the concentration the job required. This seems insane now. It seemed a bit insane then, to be honest. But that's how it worked. You kept your engagement ring in your pocket. You didn't mention the wedding plans. You pretended to be single and available even when you weren't, because you needed the job and the job needed you. And here's a strange requirement that nobody ever quite explained. Your arms had to be long enough. Not kidding. They measured you during the hiring process, stretched out your arms to make sure you could reach across the full width of the switchboard. If you were too short, too compact, if your arms couldn't span those 8 feet of cables and plugs, you didn't get the job. Simple as that. The last manual telephone exchange in London was called Enfield. It closed on the 5th of October 1960. That's the day the machines took over completely. The day the hello girls became unnecessary. They had a ceremony and everything. The final call, the final number please, the final cable plugged into the final hole. Some of those women had been operators for 30 years, had connected millions of calls, had heard more secrets than any priest or therapist. And now they were walking out of the exchange for the last time, their skills obsolete, their voices no longer needed. Progress, they called it. Automation. The future. Maybe. But something was lost too. That human voice on the other end of the line. The knowledge that when you picked up your telephone, a real person was there to help you. That you weren't just talking to wires and machines, but to someone who might remember your voice, might recognize your number, might even care whether your call went through. You're back in your own bed now, your own quiet night. If you pick up your phone, no one says number, please. No hello girl is waiting to connect you. You just tap a screen and the call happens like magic, like the system runs itself. But it didn't always. There was a time when every call was a small act of human cooperation, a voice asking what you needed, hands moving across a board, cables plugging into holes, a connection made person to person all the way down the line. Rest for a moment. Let the image of that switchboard fade.
Dear friends, if this story brought you even a little peace tonight, just imagine how many more relaxing bedtime stories are waiting for you on this channel. So, please like this video, share it with someone who also loves calm stories, and don't forget to subscribe to join our family. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know whenever a new story is uploaded. And now, YouTube has introduced something new. It's called Hype. By giving our channel a little hype, you can help us reach so many more people who need rest and relaxation. Your support truly means the world. Finally, let us know in the comments how tonight's story felt for you. Every single word of feedback inspires us to create more magical bedtime journeys. Sweet dreams, and see you again in the